In front of 500 guests, he humiliated her. "Sign the divorce papers if you're brave. You'll be nothing without me." She didn't cry. She signed in 10 minutes. And then 10 Rolls-Royce silently lined up at the gate. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, we place our hearts in your hands today. Cover every woman in this family with divine strength, quiet courage, and unbreakable dignity. Bless the women who give love without counting the cost, who carry families on tired shoulders, and who still smile through pain. Grant them good health, peaceful minds, and homes filled with warmth. Let no woman here ever feel unseen, unheard, or unloved, because in your eyes she is precious and powerful. My beautiful family, this space was built with love, honesty, and respect, especially for women who are the backbone of every home and every story. I give you my heart in every word I write. Stay with me, feel this story, and walk with me till the end, because this family rises together. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." Some love stories begin with fireworks. Tara Hyman's began with a butterfly. She was 23 years old, sitting at a folding table in the parking lot of Mount Zion Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia, painting butterflies and sunflowers on the faces of squealing children. Her natural hair was pulled back with a yellow scarf that matched her sundress, and paint smudged her left cheek where she'd absent-mindedly touched her face. She was laughing at something a little girl said when she felt someone watching her. Luke Wood stood 10 feet away, holding a paper plate with potato salad he wasn't eating. He'd driven down from Atlanta to visit his grandmother for the weekend, reluctantly agreeing to attend the church picnic she'd been talking about for weeks. He was 26, wore khakis and a button-down shirt that looked too formal for the occasion, and had planned to stay exactly 1 hour before making an excuse to leave. Then he saw Tara. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she had the kind of smile that made everyone around her smile too, though she did. He saw her because of the light. That's the only way he could describe it later. She seemed to glow from the inside out, like joy was her natural state of being. He walked over without planning to, stood at the edge of her table until she looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked, tilting her head. "You make everyone around you brighter," he said, then immediately felt stupid for saying something so strange to a woman he'd just met. But Tara didn't laugh at him. Her smile softened, became something intimate and warm. "That's the sweetest thing anybody's said to me in a long time. I'm Luke. Tara. You want your face painted?" She gestured to the chair across from her. "I'm probably too old for that." "Nobody's too old for a little joy, Luke." He sat down. She painted a small butterfly on his wrist, her fingers gentle and sure, and they talked while she worked. About nothing important and everything that mattered. She told him she worked at the library, loved to paint, wanted to travel someday but had never been out of Georgia. He told her about his job in corporate sales, his tiny apartment in Atlanta, how he'd been working so hard he'd forgotten what it felt like to just sit and talk to someone. When the picnic ended and the sun started setting, Luke walked Tara to her mama's house 6 blocks away. Light rain began to fall, and he gave her his jacket without thinking about it, watched it swallow her small frame. On the porch of that small house with the swing and the flower boxes, he kissed her for the first time, gentle, like she was something precious he might break. "Can I call you?" he asked, rain dripping from his hair. "You better," she said, and meant it. That was how it started, with kindness, with attention, with a man who looked at her like she hung the moon and the stars just for him. The courtship felt like a dream she was afraid to wake from. Luke called every single night, even when he was exhausted from work. They'd talk for hours, falling asleep with phones pressed to their ears, waking up to dead batteries and smiles. Every weekend, he drove 6 hours down and 6 hours back just to spend Saturday and Sunday with her. He met her family, her mama Ruby, her grandmother Pearl, her 3 sisters. He sat in her grandmother's garden and helped pull weeds, didn't complain when dirt got under his fingernails or sweat soaked through his shirt. "That boy loves you proper," Grandmother Pearl told Tara one evening, watching Luke through the kitchen window as he helped Tara's nephew fix his bicycle chain. "He looks at you the way your grandfather looked at me, like you're the answer to a question he didn't know he was asking." 6 months later, Luke proposed in that same garden, kneeling in the dirt with a simple ring that had cost him 2 months' salary. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped it. "Tara, I'm nobody special," he said, and his voice cracked with emotion. "I'm just a guy who sells software to people who don't want it. But when I'm with you, I feel like I could be something, like I could be the man you deserve. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to make you as happy as you make me." Tara cried so hard she could barely say yes. Her tears fell on his upturned face, mixing with his own. They married 3 months later in that same church where they met, with 200 people who loved them watching Tara walk down the aisle in her grandmother's wedding dress, altered to fit her smaller frame. Luke cried when he saw her. Actually cried, tears running down his face, not caring who saw his vulnerability. "You're so beautiful," he whispered when she reached him, voice thick with wonder. "You're not so bad yourself," she whispered back, and they both laughed through their tears. The first years were magic. They lived in a tiny apartment in Atlanta that barely fit their bed and a couch, but they were completely happy. Sunday mornings meant sleeping late, then Tara making biscuits from scratch while Luke read the newspaper out loud, doing funny voices for the political columnists that made her laugh so hard she'd burn the eggs. They danced in the kitchen to her grandmother's old Motown records, his arms around her waist, her head on his chest. He washed her hair when she was tired after work, his fingers gentle on her scalp, patient with every curl and coil. She ironed his shirts for work and left notes in the pockets. "Love you more today than yesterday. Not as much as tomorrow." Friday nights, they'd buy cheap wine and sit on the fire escape of their building, planning their future under a sky that glowed orange from city lights. "2 kids, Tara said, head on his shoulder, feeling safe and seen. "A boy and a girl." "Whatever you want," Luke said, kissing her forehead. "Long as they have your smile and your heart." "And your determination," she added. "My stubbornness, you mean?" "That too." They laughed, and the city lights twinkled below them, and everything was perfect in a way that felt too good to last. When Tara got pregnant 2 years into their marriage, they cried together again. Happy tears, shocked tears, overwhelmed tears. Luke held her and said, "We're having a baby. We're going to be parents." "Are you ready?" she asked, suddenly terrified. "With you? I'm ready for anything." Nia came into the world on a Tuesday morning after 16 hours of labor. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfection, with Luke's nose and Tara's enormous eyes that seemed to see straight into your soul. Luke held his daughter and wept, called her my princess before she was an hour old. He was a devoted father from day one, handling midnight feedings without complaint, singing Nia to sleep with off-key lullabies that somehow worked better than any music. Tara painted the nursery with clouds and stars, stood back to admire her work while heavily pregnant, Luke's arms around her from behind, his hands on her swollen belly. "She's going to be so loved," he said. "She already is," Tara replied, covering his hands with hers. Their little family felt complete. Luke worked 2 jobs to support them, so Tara could stay home with Nia, came home exhausted every night but always stopped to kiss his wife hello and scoop up his daughter. Tara would have his dinner waiting, heated and ready, and they'd eat together as a family, Nia in her high chair between them, throwing food and laughing. "You're amazing," Luke told Tara one night, watching her clean Nia's face after the baby had smeared sweet potatoes from her eyebrows to her chin. "Best wife, best mother, I'm the luckiest man alive." Tara glowed under his praise, felt it warm her from the inside. She felt seen, valued, loved in a way that made her feel invincible. But then something shifted. So small at first, she almost missed it, like a crack in a foundation you can't see until the house starts to lean. Luke got a promotion to junior manager when Nia was 18 months old. Good news, they celebrated with pizza and ice cream. But that same week, he snapped at Tara for the first time. "Can you just give me 5 minutes of quiet?" he said when she tried to tell him about Nia's first full sentence. "I've been dealing with idiots all day. I need peace." Tara stepped back, stung like he'd slapped her. "Sorry, I just thought you'd want to know." He softened immediately, guilt flashing across his face. "I do want to know, babe. I'm just exhausted. Tomorrow, okay? Tell me everything tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. He forgot to ask, and Tara didn't remind him, didn't want to seem needy. It happened again a month later. Nia woke up crying at 2 in the morning, and Tara got up to soothe her like she always did. Luke groaned from the bed. "Can you keep her quiet? Some of us have to work in the morning." "I work too," Tara said, bouncing Nia against her shoulder in the dark. "Just not at an office." "Right, well, try to keep it down." He rolled over, went back to sleep while Tara stood in the dark nursery, rocking their daughter, wondering when taking care of their child had become only her responsibility, wondering when he'd started talking to her like she was the help instead of his partner. By the time Nia was 3, Luke rarely helped with bedtime anymore. "Long day, babe. You got this, right?" became his nightly refrain. Not really a question. He stopped holding Tara's hand at church. When she tried to tell him about her day, he'd say, "Can we talk later? I'm exhausted." Later never happened. The conversation never resumed. Her words evaporated into the air like they'd never been spoken. 5 years into their marriage, Luke got another promotion. Regional manager now, bigger salary, better title, more prestige. They moved to a larger house in a nicer neighborhood with perfect lawns and judgment. Tara's family came to help them move in, and for the first time, Luke seemed irritated by their presence, their loudness, their joy. "Do they have to stay for dinner?" he asked Tara quietly in the kitchen, while her mama and sisters unpacked boxes in the living room, laughing at old memories. "Your mama's so loud. What will the neighbors think?" Tara felt her stomach twist, felt shame creep up her neck. "That's just how Mama is. She's excited for us." "Well, maybe ask her to tone it down a little. We're not in the country anymore. This is a nice neighborhood. We have a reputation to maintain." That night, Tara quietly asked her Mama to keep her voice down, saw the hurt flash across Ruby's face and felt sick with herself, but said nothing to Luke about it. Just swallowed the shame and smiled. Year 6 brought the dinner party incident that Tara would remember forever, that would replay in her mind during sleepless nights for years to come. Luke's boss was coming for dinner, bringing his wife, and Luke made it clear this evening was crucial for his career. Tara cooked for 3 days straight, cleaning the house until it sparkled, making sure every detail was absolutely perfect. Her hands were raw from scrubbing. During dinner, she told a story about Nia's school play, how their daughter had forgotten her line, but improvised so cleverly that everyone laughed, and the teacher had praised her creativity. "Honey," Luke interrupted, his voice carrying that edge she'd started to recognize, that tone that made her stomach drop. "They don't need every single detail." Tara stopped mid-sentence, heat flooding her face, shame burning through her chest. The boss's wife gave her a pitying look that made everything so much worse, that made her feel like a child being corrected in public. The rest of dinner, Tara barely spoke, just smiled and nodded, and felt herself disappearing. Later, alone in their bedroom, she confronted him with shaking hands. "Why did you embarrass me like that?" Luke looked genuinely confused, like she was speaking another language. "I didn't embarrass you. You were rambling. I was helping you." "Helping me? You made me feel stupid in front of your boss." "You're being too sensitive. I was just trying to keep the conversation moving. Not everything has to be a long story, Tara. Read the room." She wanted to scream that it wasn't a long story, that she'd barely started, that he'd made her feel worthless with a single sentence. But she didn't. She went to the bathroom and cried instead, staring at her reflection in the mirror and not understanding why his words hurt so much, cut so deep. By year 8 of their marriage, Tara had become invisible, a ghost in her own life. At company events, people introduced her as Luke's wife, never asking her name, never making eye contact. She'd try to introduce herself properly. "I'm Tara, nice to meet you." But Luke would talk over her before she could finish, explaining, "She stays home with our daughter." Like that was her entire identity, her only value. At Nia's parent-teacher conference, when the teacher praised their daughter's academic progress and creativity, Luke said, "Thank you. We work really hard with her at home." We. As if he'd spent even one evening helping with homework instead of working late or watching television. Tara did it all, every single night, while Luke was absent. But he took the credit with a smile, and she said nothing because she'd learned that speaking up only led to being told she was too sensitive. Their 10th wedding anniversary was approaching, and Tara decided to do something special, something to remind Luke of who they used to be. She saved money from the grocery budget for 3 months, hiding $20 here and there, got her hair done at a salon for the first time in years, bought a new dress that made her feel like a woman instead of just a mother. She recreated their first date down to the smallest detail, made all his favorite foods, even found their wedding song to play during dinner. Nia helped her bake his favorite chocolate cake, chocolate chips scattered throughout. "Daddy's going to be so happy," Nia said, licking batter from the spoon, eyes bright with excitement. "Yes, baby," Tara said, believing it with her whole heart. "Tonight we're all going to be happy again." She set the table with their good plates, the ones they'd received as wedding gifts and never used, lit candles, put on her new dress, waited with hope beating in her chest like a trapped bird. Luke was supposed to be home at 6. By 7, the food was getting cold. By 8, the candles had burned down to stubs. By 9, Nia had fallen asleep on the couch, still in her party dress, waiting for Daddy like she'd waited so many times before. Luke walked in at 9:45, tie loosened, smelling like bourbon and cigars. Tara stood in the kitchen in her new dress, mascara smeared down her face from hours of crying, looking at the ruins of her hope. "Where were you?" Her voice was hollow, emptied out. Luke barely looked at her, was already loosening his tie. "Work dinner ran late. I texted you." "No, you didn't. And it's our anniversary." He pulled out his phone, frowned at the screen. "Oh, must have forgot to hit send. Sorry, babe." "Sorry?" Tara's voice cracked down the middle. "I spent months planning tonight. Months. I made all your favorite foods. Nia waited up for you in her party dress until she fell asleep waiting. Look, I can't keep track of every little thing. You're home all day. You could have reminded me this morning. Every little thing. Their 10th wedding anniversary was every little thing. I'm home all day raising our daughter, Luke. Right, that's your job. My job is earning money so you can stay home. And my job required me at that dinner tonight. I'm sorry you're upset, but you know how important my career is, how important it is for our family." Something broke inside Tara in that moment. Not her heart. Something deeper. The part of her that still believed he loved her, that still hoped he'd wake up one day and see her again. Really see her the way he had at that church picnic when she was painting butterflies, and he'd said she made everyone around her brighter. She walked past him to the bedroom, locked the door behind her, stood in front of the mirror in her new dress, and realized she didn't recognize herself anymore. When had she become so small? When had she disappeared so completely that even she couldn't see herself? Outside the door, Luke called, "Babe, come on, don't be dramatic. We can celebrate tomorrow. I promise." But Tara knew they wouldn't. Tomorrow he'd forget again, or find another excuse, or tell her she was being unreasonable for expecting him to prioritize her, for thinking she mattered as much as his career. She looked at her reflection, at this stranger wearing her face, and made a decision. She didn't know what yet, only that she couldn't keep living like this, couldn't keep disappearing piece by piece until there was nothing left of the girl who used to paint butterflies and dream of traveling the world and believed love was enough. Somewhere in this house was the woman Luke Wood had fallen in love with, the one who glowed from the inside, the one who made everyone around her brighter, the one who mattered. And Tara was going to find her again, even if it meant losing him completely, even if it meant burning down everything they'd built, even if it meant destroying the life she'd spent a decade creating. Because being alone had to be better than being invisible in your own marriage. Chapter 2. The Awakening. The morning after their ruined anniversary, Luke acted like nothing had happened, like their marriage hadn't cracked wide open the night before. He walked into the kitchen, whistling some tune from the radio, kissed Tara's forehead like he always did, poured himself coffee in the mug she'd bought him for Father's Day. "Thanks for understanding about last night, babe. Work's just crazy right now. You know how it is." Tara stood at the stove, flipping pancakes for Naya, her back to him, shoulders rigid. She didn't respond, didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge his presence, just kept flipping pancakes with mechanical precision, each movement controlled and deliberate. "Tara, you hear me?" "I heard you." Something in her voice should have warned him, should have made him stop, turn around, actually look at his wife for the first time in years, but he was already checking his phone, already mentally at the office. "Great, I gotta run. Big presentation today. Love you." He was gone before she could respond. Not that she would have. The words felt like lies in her mouth now, bitter and wrong. Nia wandered in, rubbing her eyes, still wearing yesterday's party dress because she'd fallen asleep in it. "Where's Daddy?" "Work, baby, always work." After Nia ate breakfast and went to play in her room, Tara stood in her kitchen staring at the cold, untouched anniversary dinner still sitting on the dining room table. The candles were burned down to nothing but hardened pools of wax. The flowers she'd bought were already wilting, petals dropping onto the tablecloth like tears. She'd spent 3 months planning one perfect evening, and he'd forgotten to even send a text. She picked up her phone with trembling hands and called her mama. "Baby, it's early. You okay?" Tara started crying. Couldn't even get words out, just sobbed into the phone like a child who'd fallen and scraped her knees, needing her mother to make it better. "I'm coming to get you," Ruby said, no questions asked. "Pack a bag, you and Nia, come home." 3 hours later, Tara pulled into her mama's driveway in Augusta, with Nia asleep in the back seat and a suitcase in the trunk that she'd packed with shaking hands. She'd left a note for Luke on the kitchen counter, simple and devastating. "Went to Mama's, need to think, don't know when we're coming back." Grandmother Pearl took one look at Tara's face when she walked through the door and pulled her into a hug that smelled like lavender and safety and everything Tara had forgotten she deserved. "What did he do to you, baby girl?" "Nothing, Grandma. That's the problem. He didn't do anything. He just stopped seeing me. And I let him. I disappeared and I didn't even notice until I was already gone." Pearl held her granddaughter tighter, felt how thin she'd become, how much of herself she'd lost. "Where's that light you used to have? The one that made everybody smile just by being near you?" Tara had no answer. She'd lost that light somewhere between year 3 and year 8 of her marriage, let it dim until it went out completely, and Luke had never even noticed, never asked where it went, never cared enough to wonder why his wife stopped glowing. The first few days in Georgia were quiet. Tara slept late, ate her mama's cooking, watched Nia play in the backyard she'd grown up in, Luke called every day, multiple times a day, his messages getting progressively more irritated. "When are you coming home? The house is a mess without you. I can't find anything." Not, "I miss you." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I was wrong. The house is a mess." "I don't know, Luke. I need time." "Time for what? You're being dramatic." "So I missed one anniversary. We can celebrate when you get back. I already apologized." "It's not about the anniversary." "Then what's it about?" "Because I don't understand what I did wrong. You're acting like I committed some crime when all I did was work late." And that was the problem. He genuinely didn't understand, didn't see how he'd erased her piece by piece, year by year, until she was just the woman who kept his house clean and raised his child and asked for nothing in return, expected nothing, became nothing. "I'll call you when I'm ready to talk," she said, and hung up before he could protest. A week into her stay, Tara went through old boxes in her mama's attic, dusty and forgotten. Found paintings she'd done before Luke, before marriage, before motherhood. Vibrant explosions of color, bold brushstrokes, scenes that practically jumped off the canvas with life and energy. A sunset over the Savannah River. Her grandmother's hands kneading dough, Nia as a newborn, wrapped in light. She'd been good, really good. How had she forgotten that? When had she stopped believing she had talent worth nurturing? Nia found her sitting on the attic floor, surrounded by paintings, tears streaming down her face in the dusty light. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. I just found some old stuff I'd forgotten about." "Did you paint these?" Nia picked up a canvas, eyes wide with wonder and discovery. "Mama, they're beautiful. They're amazing. Why'd you stop?" Why had she stopped? She couldn't even remember. Somewhere between washing Luke's shirts and packing Nia's lunches and making sure dinner was ready on time and keeping the house perfect and being available whenever he needed her, she'd just stopped. Stopped painting, stopped dreaming, stopped being Tara. Became just Luke's wife, Nia's mother, nobody's priority. "I don't know, baby, but I'm going to start again." That night, she set up an old easel in her mama's garage, the one she'd used in high school. Bought paints from the art supply store in town with money she'd saved from her grocery budget, money Luke didn't know about. Put brush to canvas for the first time in 8 years and felt something inside her chest crack open. She painted for hours, lost in the work, forgetting time and space and pain. When she finally stepped back to look at what she'd created, she started crying all over again. Because it was good. Because she'd forgotten she could make something beautiful. Because for the first time in years, she felt like herself instead of someone else's accessory. Luke's calls became more insistent, bleeding through her piece. "Tara, this is ridiculous. Nia has school. You can't just run away because you're having a tantrum over one missed dinner." "I'm not running away. I'm remembering who I was before I married you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I forgot myself, Luke, and I need to remember who she was before you made her disappear." She stayed another week, then another. Luke's calls turned angry, then desperate, then angry again. She stopped answering most of them, let them go to voicemail, deleted them without listening. When she finally drove back to Atlanta 3 weeks later, Tara was different, quieter but stronger. More certain of something she couldn't name yet, but could feel taking root. Luke was waiting when she walked through the door, and his face was a storm. "Finally. Do you know how hard it's been without you? I've been eating takeout for 3 weeks. The laundry's piled up to the ceiling. Nia's room is a disaster. I had to cancel a dinner party because the house was too messy." Not, "I missed you." Not, "I was worried." Not, "I love you." Just a list of inconveniences her absence had caused, like she was a maid who'd quit without notice. "Hello to you too," Tara said, setting her suitcase down with a thud that echoed through the perfect, empty house. The next morning she cleared out space in the garage, moved Luke's golf clubs and old boxes to one side, set up her easel, organized her paints by color, hung a curtain to block out the rest of the clutter, created a small studio that was hers, and only hers. Luke found her there after work, standing in the doorway looking confused and slightly irritated. "What's all this?" "I'm going to paint again." "Tara, you have responsibilities, the house, Nia, dinner. You can't just—" "I'll handle my responsibilities. But I'm painting too. This isn't negotiable." He opened his mouth to argue, saw something in her face that made him stop. Something hard and final that hadn't been there before. "Fine. Whatever. Just don't let it interfere with your actual job." Your actual job? Taking care of his house, his daughter, him, making his life comfortable while hers evaporated. Tara turned back to her canvas and didn't respond, just picked up her brush and started painting like he wasn't even there. The small rebellions started slowly, carefully, testing the boundaries of her new resolve. She stopped ironing Luke's shirts, left them in the laundry basket for him to deal with, stopped waiting up to have dinner with him, ate with Nia at 6, and left his plate in the fridge. When he talked over her at church, she kept talking anyway, louder, until he had to stop or look like a fool. "Why are you acting like this?" he asked one Sunday after service, embarrassed that she'd contradicted him in front of the pastor and half the congregation. "Like what? Like a person with opinions? Like you're trying to pick a fight with me, like you're trying to embarrass me." "I'm not picking anything. I'm just not disappearing anymore. If that embarrasses you, maybe ask yourself why." At his company's holiday party, when someone asked her what she did and Luke started to answer for her like he always did, she cut him off mid-sentence. "I'm an artist," she said clearly, meeting the person's eyes with confidence that surprised her. "I paint." Luke's smile tightened, became plastic and fake. "She's being modest. She stays home with our daughter. The painting is just a hobby." "I do both," Tara said, not backing down. "I'm capable of both. Women usually are." The person laughed uncomfortably and moved away. Later in the car, Luke was furious, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You embarrassed me in there, made me look like I don't support you." "You don't support me. You tolerate me. There's a difference. Because it makes you sound like you think you're better than being a mother." "No, Luke. It makes me sound like I'm more than just a mother. Because I am. I'm a whole person. I forgot that for a while, but I remember now." He didn't speak to her for 2 days. She painted through both of them, the silence a relief instead of a punishment. Luke tried to fix things in his own way, the only way he knew how. Brought home flowers one evening, expensive roses in a crystal vase. "Thought you'd like these," he said, handing them to her with an expectant smile. "Thank you." Tara put them in water, arranged them carefully, then went back to her canvas without the performance he expected. He stood there waiting for more. The grateful kiss, the big smile, the proof that his gesture had fixed whatever was broken between them. "That's it?" he finally said, confusion and irritation mixing in his voice. "What do you want me to say?" "I thought you'd be happy. I brought you flowers." "I am." I said thank you. But she didn't glow the way she used to. Didn't fall all over herself with gratitude because he'd done the bare minimum after years of doing nothing, and he felt something slipping through his fingers that he didn't know how to hold on to, didn't even know he'd been holding at all. The confrontation came 2 weeks later at Sunday dinner with his parents, a command performance Tara had stopped being able to refuse. They were talking about Luke's upcoming promotion to senior vice president, and he held court for 20 minutes straight about his achievements, his hard work, his dedication to the company. Tara ate in silence, cutting her food into smaller and smaller pieces. His mother finally turned to Tara with forced politeness. "And how are you, dear?" Before Tara could open her mouth, Luke answered for her like she was a child who needed translation. "She's great. Keeping busy with Nia and her little painting hobby." "Little painting hobby." Tara set down her fork very carefully, slowly, like she was defusing a bomb. Stood up without saying a word. Walked out of the dining room, down the hall, out of the house, left them all sitting there in confused silence. Luke's mother followed her to the driveway, heels clicking on the pavement. "Honey, are you all right?" "No," Tara said, honesty spilling out. "I'm really not." "What's wrong? What can I do?" Tara looked at this woman who'd raised the man she married, wondered if she'd been invisible too, if this was a generational curse passed from mother to son. "When's the last time Luke asked me about my day, my dreams, when I'm happy or sad? When's the last time he saw me as something other than the woman who keeps his house clean and his life comfortable?" Luke's mother had no answer, just stood there with her mouth open, searching for words that wouldn't come. That night, after his parents left in awkward silence, after Nia went to bed asking why Mama was upset, Tara sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and started writing. Every dismissive comment, every time he'd talked over her, every time he'd made her feel small, dates, contexts, witnesses. She documented it all with the precision of someone building a case. Then she called a lawyer, just to talk, just to understand her options, just to know if leaving was possible or just a fantasy she'd torture herself with forever. "What you're describing is emotional abuse," the lawyer said gently, her voice kind and knowing. "It's insidious because it leaves no bruises, no evidence you can photograph, but it's real and it's harmful, and you have grounds for divorce if that's what you want. I don't know what I want yet. That's okay, but start protecting yourself. Open your own bank account. Document everything. Be ready for when you decide." Tara started selling paintings online. Small local sales through Facebook groups and church connections, nothing major, but every dollar went into an account Luke didn't know about. Her money, her safety net, her freedom fund. Each sale was a brick in the road that led away from him. Their 12th anniversary was approaching like a train she could hear coming but couldn't stop. Luke wanted a big party at the country club, wanted to show off for his colleagues and the partners he was trying to impress. "Black tie, full catering, the works," he said, already planning without asking her opinion. "This promotion is huge, Tara. Everyone important needs to be there. This could make my career." "What if I don't want a big party?" "Don't be difficult. This is important for my career." "What about what's important to me?" "This benefits our whole family. Stop being selfish. You always do this. Make everything about you when I'm trying to build something for us." Selfish. For wanting to matter. For wanting to be seen. For wanting her anniversary to be about their marriage and not his career advancement. She looked at her husband across their pristine kitchen and realized she didn't love him anymore, didn't hate him either, just felt nothing, like looking at a stranger who happened to live in her house and share her last name. "Fine," she said, voice flat and dead. "Let's have your party." Luke beamed, completely missing the resignation in her eyes. "See? This is the Tara I married, supportive, understanding, my partner." No, Tara thought. The Tara you married had light, had joy, had dreams. You killed that Tara year by year, word by word, until there was nothing left but this hollow shell. But if he wanted a party, she'd give him one. Just not the kind he expected. Not the kind anyone expected. She was done being invisible, and she was going to make sure everyone saw her one last time. Chapter 3. The preparation. Tara filed for divorce 3 weeks before the anniversary party. She sat in the lawyer's office signing papers with steady hands, feeling lighter with every signature. The lawyer looked impressed. "Most women cry at this point." "I cried for 2 years already," Tara said. "I'm done crying over him." The plan crystallized in her mind with perfect clarity. She wouldn't just serve him divorce papers. She'd paint the truth, and she'd show it to everyone. For 3 weeks, Tara painted in secret in a storage unit she rented with cash. 12 paintings, one for each year of their marriage, each one a portrait of erasure. Year 1, a bride glowing with light, her husband's arms around her, both radiant. Year 2, The same woman, slightly dimmer, holding a baby, her husband turned away. Year 3. The woman fading at the edges, dissolving into watercolor. Year 4. The woman serving dinner to people who looked through her face blurring. Year 5. The woman's features becoming indistinct, forgettable. Year 6. The woman translucent now, wallpaper visible through her body. Year 7. The woman barely there, just an outline. Year 8. The woman invisible except for her hands, still cooking, cleaning, serving. Year 9. Just a shadow where a woman used to be. Year 10. An empty chair at a table set for two, the woman gone completely. Year 11. A painting of a painting, the woman trying to paint herself back into existence. Year 12. A woman made entirely of light, walking away from a man-shaped shadow. Free. She arranged for them to be delivered to the country club the morning of the party, hung before anyone arrived. The venue coordinator thought they were a surprise anniversary gift. They were, just not the kind anyone expected. The lawyer built the case with precision. Years of emails and text messages documenting Luke's dismissal. Luke to his colleague. Sometimes I wonder if I settled too early. Could have done better. That last one nearly broke Tara's resolve, but she held steady. This is textbook emotional abuse, the lawyer said. You have an excellent case. I don't want his money. I just want everyone to see what he did. Nia knew something was wrong. 10 years old, perceptive, with eyes that saw too much. Why are you crying? She asked one night, finding Tara in the storage unit surrounded by portraits of her own disappearance. I'm not crying, baby. Just tired. You've been tired for a long time, Mama. Tara pulled her daughter close. Nia, if Mama had to make a big change, would you be okay? What kind of change? A brave one. Nia hugged her fiercely. You're the bravest person I know. Meanwhile, Luke was completely oblivious. Didn't notice his wife had moved to the guest room. Didn't notice she'd stopped saying, I love you. Didn't notice she was planning to detonate his perfect life. The week before the party, Luke took Tara to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta. After this promotion, things will be different, he said. Maybe you can quit that painting thing and we can actually enjoy our life. Quit painting, the one thing keeping her alive. I don't want to quit painting, Luke. Well, when we have more money, you won't have to do it for extra cash. You can just relax, be a wife again instead of trying to be some artist. He thought she painted for money. Didn't understand it was oxygen. All this sacrifice will be worth it, he continued. Everything I've worked for. Whose sacrifice, Luke? Mine, of course. While she'd raised their daughter alone, lost herself alone, rebuilt herself alone. Tara smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd made peace with destruction. You're right, honey. It'll all be worth it. The day before the party, Tara got her hair done, bought a red dress that made her look powerful and dangerous. Luke noticed when she came home. You look nice. For tomorrow? Yes, for tomorrow. He kissed her cheek, already distracted, and went back to work. That night, Tara sat in Nia's room, watching her daughter breathe in the dark. I'm doing this for both of us, baby, she whispered. So you never think it's okay to disappear for anyone? She kissed Nia's forehead and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Tomorrow, everything would change. Her mama called at sunrise. Last chance to back out. No, Mama, I'm doing this. Then I'll be right there, and I'll be proud. Tara dressed in the red dress. Heels that made her taller, makeup that made her look like someone who'd survived a war and won. This woman was powerful. Certain, done being invisible. Luke was adjusting his tie when she came downstairs. You look good. Ready to go? I've been ready for 2 years. He didn't hear the weight in her words, just smiled, offered his arm, and led her to the car. In her purse were the divorce papers. In the country club ballroom were 12 paintings that told the truth he'd spent 12 years hiding. The country club was filling with guests, Luke's colleagues, his boss, People from church, her family. Tara's mama nodded, prepared for war. Luke worked the room, introducing my wife Tara, like she was a possession he was proud to own. She smiled and played the part for the last time. People started noticing the paintings, stopped to stare, whispered. Luke hadn't seen them yet, too busy impressing the right people. An hour into the party, Luke took the microphone to give his toast, and Tara prepared to show him what being truly seen felt like. Chapter 4. The Destruction. Luke Wood stood at the front of the ballroom with a microphone in his hand and a smile on his face, completely unaware that his world was about to end in a way he couldn't fix or explain away. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice warm and confident and utterly oblivious. The crowd quieted, 200 people turning their attention to him like he was giving a performance, which he was. 12 years ago, I married this woman. He gestured toward Tara, standing 20 feet away in her red dress like a flame in the middle of the room. She looked stunning, powerful, nothing like the diminished woman he'd stopped seeing years ago. Tara gave me a beautiful daughter, a comfortable home. She supported me through every career move, every late night, every challenge. He smiled at her like she was a trophy he'd won in some competition against himself. And now, with my new senior vice president position, we're entering an exciting new chapter together. The crowd applauded. Luke beamed. Tara stood up, and the room's attention shifted like a wave. "Honey?" Luke's smile faltered, confusion flickering across his face. Tara walked toward him with steady steps, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown. Every eye in the room followed her. She reached him, took the microphone from his hand before he could react. "Yes, let's talk about chapters," she said, her voice clear and strong, and nothing like the quiet, apologetic voice she'd learned to use around him. "Let's talk about the 12 chapters of our marriage, and let me show you what they looked like." She gestured to the walls where her 12 paintings hung, backlit now by the venue coordinator who'd been given specific instructions. One by one, spotlights illuminated them. The progression of a woman's disappearance, a visual record of emotional murder. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People moved closer to look. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Luke's face went white, then red, then purple. "Tara, what are you—" "This is year 1, she said, pointing to the first painting, the glowing bride. "This is who I was when I married you, full of light, full of dreams, full of myself." She moved to the second painting. "This is year 2. I'm starting to dim. You've started choosing work over us, but I tell myself it's temporary. You're building a career, building a future." Third painting. Year 3. I'm fading at the edges. You snap at me when I try to talk about my day. Tell me you're tired. Tell me later. Later never comes. Luke tried to take the microphone. She stepped back, kept going. Year 4. I'm serving you dinner and you look right through me. I'm becoming invisible and you don't even notice. Year 5. You embarrass me at a dinner party. Tell me I talk too much. I stop talking. Year 6. You ask my mother to be quieter in our house. I'm so ashamed I can barely look at her. Year 7. I'm barely here, just hands that cook and clean, a body that serves. Year 8. I'm transparent. You can see through me now. I've become background noise in my own life. The room was silent except for someone crying. Several women, actually, seeing themselves in the paintings, seeing their own disappearance. Year 9. I'm almost gone, just a shadow, a suggestion of a person who used to be here. Year 10. The empty chair. Our anniversary. You forgot, called it every little thing. That's when I knew you'd never see me. That's when I started planning to leave. Year 11. I'm trying to paint myself back into existence, fighting to remember who I was before you made me small. She turned to the final painting. The woman made of light, walking away from the shadow of a man. And year 12. This year, where I finally chose myself. She pulled divorce papers from her small clutch, unfolded them in front of everyone, and signed them on the table where the anniversary cake sat untouched. I'm divorcing you, Luke, right here, right now, in front of everyone. Because you made me invisible in front of everyone. Every dinner party where you talked over me. Every time you introduced me as just your wife. Every time you made me feel worthless for being anything other than your support system. Luke was shaking with rage and humiliation. You planned this. You're insane. This is... What I am, she interrupted, her voice cutting through his, is done. Done being small. Done being invisible. Done pretending that your career is more important than my existence. She handed him the papers. He took them with trembling hands, his perfect image crumbling in real time, in front of everyone who mattered to him. I'm taking Nia. We're leaving. My lawyer will contact yours. She turned to walk away. His mother stepped in front of her, face twisted with anger and shame. How could you do this to my son? Humiliate him like this? Tara looked at the older woman, saw the years of making herself small reflected in her eyes. I did this to him? Ask your son what he did to me. Ask him when he last asked about my day, my dreams, when he last saw me as a person instead of someone who existed to make his life comfortable. Ask him why his wife had to disappear for him to feel like a man. Luke's mother opened her mouth, closed it, had no answer because there was no answer. Tara walked through the silent crowd to where Nia stood with her sisters, her daughter's face confused and scared and brave all at once. She took Nia's hand. Come on, baby, we're going home. But Daddy, your father and I are done. But he's still your father. That won't change. Just us. We're changing. And it's going to be okay. Tara's mama stood, along with her sisters and grandmother. They formed a protective wall around Tara and Nia, walked them toward the exit like warriors escorting a queen from battle. Behind them, the ballroom erupted in whispers and shocked conversation, and women staring at those paintings like they'd seen their own lives hanging on the walls. Luke stood at the front holding divorce papers, his perfect evening destroyed, his reputation shattered, his wife gone. His boss was already leaving, uncomfortable with the scene, with the truth laid bare. His colleagues avoided eye contact. The partners he'd been trying to impress were gathered in a corner, clearly discussing what they'd just witnessed and what it meant for his promotion. Someone turned off the microphone. The music had stopped. The party was over. In the parking lot, Tara was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Her mama held her up on one side, her sister on the other. You did it, baby, Ruby whispered, fierce and proud. You really did it. Nia was crying, big heaving sobs. Mama, I don't understand. What's happening? Why did you do that to Daddy? Tara knelt down in her red dress on the pavement, took her daughter's face in her hands, looked into eyes that deserved the truth. Baby, Daddy made Mama disappear, little by little, year by year. He made me feel like I didn't matter, like my dreams weren't important, like I only existed to make his life easier. And Mama had to leave before she forgot who she was completely. Before she taught you that it's okay for women to disappear. Do you understand? Did Daddy hurt you? Not with his hands. But yes, he hurt me. With his words. With his silence. With not seeing me even when I was standing right in front of him. Will we see him again? Of course. He's still your daddy. You'll still see him. But he's not my husband anymore. And we're going to build a new life. Just us. And it's going to be beautiful. I promise. Nia cried harder, and Tara held her, and they both wept for what was lost and what was beginning, and the terrifying space in between. They drove to Ruby's house in a convoy of 3 cars full of Tara's family, leaving Luke and his shattered image behind. Tara sat in the back seat with Nia, her daughter's head on her lap, and watched the city lights blur past the window through her tears. In the rearview mirror, she could see the country club getting smaller, getting farther away, and with every mile she felt lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight for so long she'd forgotten it was there, and now it was gone and she could finally breathe. Her phone started ringing. Luke. Then again. Then again. She turned it off, put it in her purse, and left it there. At her mama's house, they settled Nia in bed. The girl cried herself to sleep, confused and hurting and too young to understand why love sometimes means leaving. Tara sat beside her the whole time, stroking her hair, whispering promises that things would be okay, even though she wasn't sure she believed them yet. Downstairs, her family waited with wine and food and the kind of love that doesn't judge. When Tara finally came down, her mama poured her a glass. "How do you feel?" her sister asked gently. Tara thought about it, tested the feeling inside her chest where her marriage used to be, where Luke used to live. "Free," she said finally. "Terrified, but free. Like I just walked out of a burning building I didn't know was on fire until I was already outside breathing clean air." She slept that night in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories of who she'd been before Luke would. And for the first time in 12 years, she slept without wondering if she'd done enough to make him happy, without planning tomorrow's performance of being someone he could love, without disappearing, just herself. Finally, completely herself. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The first week after the party felt like living in a hurricane. Luke called 50 times the first day. Tara didn't answer. He showed up at Ruby's house on day 2, pounding on the door at 7 in the morning. Ruby answered in her bathrobe. "She doesn't want to see you. This is between me and my wife. She stopped being yours the moment you stopped seeing her. Now get off my porch before I call the police." Luke stood there, disbelief warring with rage. "This isn't over. I'll get my daughter back. Tara's unstable. Everyone saw it." "No," Ruby said quietly. "She had a breakthrough. There's a difference. Now leave." She shut the door, watched through the window as he sat in his car for 10 minutes before driving away. Inside, Tara was sitting with Nia, trying to explain the inexplicable. "Why did you embarrass Daddy like that?" Nia's voice was small, hurt, angry. Tara chose her words carefully. "Baby, Daddy made Mama disappear, little by little over many years, and Mama had to leave before she forgot who she was completely. Did Daddy hurt you? Not with his hands, but yes, he hurt me, with his words, with not seeing me. Will we see him again? Of course, baby, he's still your daddy, but he's not my husband anymore." Nia cried then, deep sobs. Tara held her and cried too, for the family they'd been, for the innocence lost. Luke filed for full custody through an expensive lawyer, claiming Tara was mentally unstable, had orchestrated public humiliation, was an unfit mother. Tara's lawyer called. "He's playing dirty, using your public divorce as evidence of instability. What do I do? We show the pattern of emotional abuse. You documented everything. We make the judge understand that your breakdown was actually you standing up to years of systematic diminishment." The custody hearing was set for 6 weeks out. Tara had to find work, prove she could support Nia. Every application came back rejected. No recent work experience. Gap too large. She was desperate when she got hired at a local art supply store for minimum wage. The manager was a woman in her 50s who'd seen Tara's hand shake. "You running from something?" "Running toward something," Tara answered. "Myself." "You're hired." Tara worked full-time, came home exhausted, made dinner, helped with homework, then painted late into the night. 4 hours of sleep and sheer determination. Nia struggled. Grades dropped, got quiet, withdrawn, started having nightmares. Luke's visits became her only stability, and he weaponized it. "Your mama's making you live in that tiny house when you could be home," he'd say. "She chose to leave." Nia came back confused. "Daddy says you're being selfish." Tara bit back anger. "Daddy's hurt and saying things that aren't true. I had to leave to be healthy, baby." Meanwhile, Luke played victim everywhere. My wife had a breakdown, humiliated me. I'm protecting my daughter from her instability. Some believed him. His mother called, voice dripping contempt. You destroyed my son's reputation, his career, everything. He destroyed my sense of self, Tara said calmly, but nobody cared about that. But other women saw through it. Women from church approached Tara quietly. I wish I'd been that brave. My husband does the same thing. Thank you for showing us it's possible. Tara realized her pain was shared by dozens of women, and somehow that made it hurt more and help more. The custody hearing arrived. Luke's lawyer painted Tara as unstable, vindictive, unable to provide. She orchestrated public humiliation, demonstrating poor judgment and emotional instability. Tara's lawyer stood up. What my colleague fails to mention is why Mrs. Wood felt compelled to make her divorce public. The emails, the texts, years of Luke dismissing her, witnesses testified, her mama, her sisters, women from church. This is a pattern of emotional abuse, Tara's lawyer argued. Mrs. Wood didn't have a breakdown, she had a breakthrough. The judge spoke with Nia privately. 30 minutes later she returned. I'm awarding primary custody to Mrs. Wood. Mr. Wood will have visitation every other weekend. Mrs. Wood has demonstrated clear ability to prioritize her daughter's well-being. While the public divorce was unconventional, it doesn't indicate unfitness. Luke's face went purple. This is ridiculous. Mr. Wood, the judge said sharply, your behavior right now is concerning. I suggest you work on your anger before your next visitation. Outside, Luke cornered Tara. You turned our daughter against me. No, Luke, you did that by never being there. She knows who raised her, who helped with homework, who showed up. That was me. Only me. I was providing. You were building your empire and we just happened to live in it. She walked away, Nia's hand in hers. They went to McDonald's to celebrate. Cheap burgers and fries like they were a feast. Are you happy, Mama? Nia asked. Tara thought honestly. I'm terrified, exhausted. But yes, baby, for the first time in years, I'm happy. Chapter 6. The Rebuilding. Tara found a small apartment 6 months after the divorce, close enough to her mama for help, but far enough to be independent, to prove she could stand on her own. It's smaller than our old house, Nia said, looking around the empty living room that felt enormous with possibility. But it's ours, baby, just ours. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no performing, just us being ourselves, whatever that looks like. They decorated together over weekends, painted the walls bright colors that Luke would have hated, would have called tacky or childish or inappropriate. Tara let Nia choose purple for her bedroom, painted it herself, while her daughter directed like a tiny interior designer. They hung Tara's paintings on every wall, turned the second bedroom into a shared art studio filled with light and possibility. Can I paint too? Nia asked, running her fingers over fresh canvases. Baby, you can do anything you want here. This is our space, our rules, our life. Money was brutally tight. Tara's job at the art store barely covered rent and groceries. Some nights dinner was breakfast cereal and toast. Some nights it was rice and beans her mama had made. Nia helped more than a 10-year-old should have to, washing dishes without being asked, folding laundry while watching cartoons, being braver than any child should need to be. The guilt ate at Tara like acid. Had she made the right choice? Was her freedom worth Nia's struggle? Was pride worth poverty? Her mama found her crying in the garage studio one night, surrounded by half-finished paintings and self-doubt. Second-guessing yourself? Every day, every hour, every time Nia asks if we can afford something and I have to say no. I took her from a big house with everything she needed. Now she's eating cereal for dinner and sharing a bathroom the size of a closet because her mother needed to prove a point. Baby, stop. You didn't take her from a house. You took her from a home where her mama was dying inside piece by piece, where her daddy was teaching her that women exist to serve men and should be grateful for the opportunity. You gave her something more valuable than a big house or fancy dinners. You gave her a mama who knows her worth and isn't afraid to fight for it. That's a gift that'll last her whole life. That'll shape who she becomes. Tara wanted to believe it. Some days she did. Some days she didn't. Naya's relationship with Luke was complicated and painful to watch. Every other weekend, he picked her up in his expensive car that cost more than Tara made in a year, took her back to the big house she used to live in. She'd come home quiet, withdrawn, like she'd been to a foreign country where she used to be a citizen. "Daddy has a new girlfriend," she said one Sunday night, voice carefully neutral. Tara's heart clenched, but she kept her voice steady, kept her face calm. "How do you feel about that?" "She's nice, I guess. She's a lawyer like Daddy wanted you to be. She's really pretty and she wears expensive clothes and she's smart." "That's good, baby. I'm glad she's nice to you." "She's not you, though. She tries too hard. Like she read a book on how to be nice to kids. She doesn't need to be me. She just needs to be kind to you and make your daddy happy." But it hurt. Hurt to be replaced so quickly, like she'd been a malfunctioning appliance he'd traded in for a newer model. Hurt to know Luke had moved on while she was still figuring out how to be whole again. Hurt to realize he'd never actually loved her, just loved having someone to make him look good, and the lawyer girlfriend fit that role just as well, maybe better. 3 months after the divorce, something changed. The manager at the art store found Tara in the back room during her lunch break, sketching in a notebook while eating a sandwich she'd made from leftover chicken. "Can I see those?" Tara hesitated, felt vulnerable and exposed, then showed her. Drawings of women, strong women, broken women, women putting themselves back together, piece by painful piece. Women made of shattered glass reforming into stained glass windows. "These are incredible," Diane said, studying each one carefully. "They're powerful, raw, real. Would you let me display some in the store? We have that community artist wall." "They're just sketches. Nothing special." "They're more than that. Let me show them, please." Tara agreed, more out of politeness than hope, still not quite believing her art mattered to anyone but herself. But that weekend, 3 of her pieces sold. Small sales, $50 each, but money she'd earned from her art, from being herself, from pouring her pain onto paper and having someone say, "I see you and I'll pay to keep seeing you." She came home and cried from relief, from validation, from the tiny proof that maybe she could make this work. The sales continued, slowly at first, then faster. Word spread through the local art community. A small gallery contacted her, wanted to meet about a potential showing of her work. Tara couldn't believe it, read the email 5 times to make sure it was real. "Invisible Women," she titled the series when the gallery owner asked. Paintings of women fading into wallpaper, into kitchen tiles, into the background of their own lives, self-portraits of her own disappearance and resurrection. They were raw and painful, and so honest they hurt to look at. The opening night of her first real show, her family came. Friends from church, women who'd lived what she'd painted, who saw themselves in every brushstroke and color choice. They stood in front of her work and cried, touched the frames with trembling hands, whispered, "Thank you," like she'd given them permission to exist. One painting in particular drew crowds. A faceless woman setting a dinner table while her family talked around her like she didn't exist, like she was furniture. You could feel her screaming silently in every detail, in the rigid set of her shoulders, in the careful placement of each fork. A local arts reporter interviewed her, a young woman with kind eyes who seemed to understand before Tara even spoke. "What do you want people to take away from this exhibition?" "I want them to see the women they've stopped seeing. The wives, the mothers, the girlfriends who've made themselves so small they've disappeared. And I want those women to see themselves and know they can come back. They can be whole again. It's hard and it's scary and it's the most difficult thing you'll ever do, but it's possible. I'm living proof. The article ran the next day with a photo of Tara standing in front of the wife, her expression fierce and free. The headline, "From Invisible to Unavoidable, Artist's Journey from Emotional Abuse to Empowerment." Within a week, galleries in Charlotte and Savannah were calling. Within a month, Tara had enough commissioned work to support herself and Naya comfortably for the next year. She gave notice at the art store, hugged Diane with tears in her eyes. "You gave me a chance when nobody else would. I gave you a job. You gave yourself a future. Don't forget the difference." She moved them to a better apartment, still modest, but bigger. Nia got her own bathroom, stopped having to share. Tara got a dedicated studio space with good light and room to breathe. They bought real furniture instead of second-hand pieces, had money for Nia's school trips and art supplies and little luxuries they'd been denying themselves. "Are we rich now?" Nia asked, watching Tara put away groceries without checking the prices first, without calculating every penny. "No, baby, but we're stable and safe, and that's almost better than rich." Luke found out about Tara's success through mutual acquaintances, and it ate at him like poison. The woman he'd called a hobby painter was succeeding, was thriving, was celebrated for the very thing he'd dismissed as worthless. He showed up at her apartment one evening unannounced, looking tired and older than his years, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. "Can we talk?" Tara considered sending him away, protecting her peace, but something in his face looked genuinely broken in a way she'd never seen before. "You have 10 minutes. They sat in her living room, her paintings on every wall, her success surrounding him like evidence of his failure. "I was wrong," he said, and the words sounded rusty, unpracticed. "About everything. The way I treated you, the way I made you feel. I didn't see it then, but I see it now, and I'm sorry." "What changed?" "Therapy. Court-ordered after the gallery incident. My therapist made me look at patterns, how I treated you like my mother treated my father, like a servant instead of a partner, how I confused control with love, dominance with affection, how I took a bright, joyful woman and dimmed her light because I was threatened by it, insecure in the shadow of it." Tara listened, unmoved, heard the words, but couldn't feel them. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm sorry. Really, deeply, genuinely sorry. And because I want you to know I'm working on myself, for Nia's sake. Not for mine. I lost you. I know that. I destroyed what we had, and there's no getting it back. But I don't want to lose her too. And I'm finally understanding that being a father means showing up, not just paying bills." Tara stood up, done with the conversation, done with his epiphanies that came too late. "You've been losing her for years, Luke. Every cancelled visit, every broken promise, every time you chose anything else over being her father. The question isn't whether you understand that now. The question is whether you're actually going to change or whether you're just saying words because they sound good and your therapist told you to. I'm trying to change, really trying. Then prove it, show up for her, actually show up, be consistent, be present, be the father she deserves instead of the father you've been. But don't come here looking for absolution from me. I'm not the one you need to convince." He nodded, left quietly, and Tara watched him go, feeling nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no hope. Just the quiet certainty that he was no longer her problem to solve, her burden to carry, her cross to bear. 2 weeks later, a man named Derek came to her gallery showing. He was an art collector, successful but not showy about it, with eyes that actually saw things instead of just looking at them. He stood in front of her paintings for a long time, really studying them, before approaching her thoughtfully. "These pieces speak to something painfully real, something most people pretend doesn't exist. Thank you for creating them, for having the courage to make your pain visible. Thank you for seeing them, for taking the time to really look. They talked for an hour about art, about life, about the things that break us and the things that rebuild us stronger than before. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers, didn't interrupt once, didn't try to fix or diminish or redirect to himself. When he asked her to coffee, Tara panicked, felt her chest tighten. "I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. Just coffee, just conversation, no pressure, no expectations, no agenda, just two people talking about things that matter. You can leave any time you want." She went, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. They talked for 3 hours, time disappearing like water. He asked about her paintings, her process, her daughter, asked about her dreams and fears and the person she was becoming, remembered every answer, referenced them later in conversation, made it clear he was listening with intention. He walked her to her car afterward, didn't try to kiss her, didn't expect anything, didn't make her feel like she owed him for his attention. "I'd like to see you again, Tara. Only if you want to. Only when you're ready." She drove home thinking about his eyes, the way they'd focused on her face, when she talked like she was saying something worth hearing. The way being seen felt after years of invisibility. The way it was possible to be seen without being consumed. "Maybe," she texted him that night from her studio. "Let me think about it." He responded immediately, but not desperately. "Take all the time you need, I'll be here when you're ready, and if you're never ready, I'll understand that too." Tara stood in her studio that night, looking at her paintings. The invisible women, the broken women, the women putting themselves back together piece by piece, shard by shard, becoming mosaics instead of mirrors. She picked up her brush and started something new. A woman made entirely of light, expanding outward, taking up space, refusing to apologize for her brightness, uncontained and unapologetic and free. She painted until dawn, Nia asleep safe in her room, the apartment quiet and peaceful and theirs. She was building something beautiful from the wreckage of what had broken, creating art from ashes, making light from darkness. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Tara Hyman wasn't just surviving. She was living, really, truly, impossibly living. Chapter 7. The Rise. 1 year after the divorce, Tara's work was in galleries across 4 states, her name becoming known in Southern art circles. She was teaching weekly classes for abuse survivors, helping other women find their voices through art, watching them transform the way she had. Each class felt like church, like testimony, like collective healing. Dating Derek slowly and carefully, letting him prove with consistency what Luke had only promised with words. He met Nia after 8 months of dating, was patient and kind, and never tried to replace her father, just carved out his own space in their lives. "He asks me questions about school," Nia told Tara one night after Derek had left from dinner, wonder in her voice. "Like he actually wants to know the answers, not like he's just waiting for his turn to talk. That's what it looks like when someone sees you, baby, when they value your thoughts and opinions. Remember that feeling, never settle for less." Nia hugged her fiercely. "I'm glad you found him, Mama. You smile different now, real smiles." Meanwhile, Luke had hit bottom hard, lost his job from drinking during work hours, moved to a smaller apartment that smelled like regret, saw Nia maybe once a month when he remembered. His family had stopped enabling him after his mother finally admitted through tears, "Maybe you did bring this on yourself, son. Maybe you broke something that can't be fixed." That admission broke something in Luke, shattered whatever denial he'd been clinging to, made him actually look at who he'd become instead of who he pretended to be. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while Tara was teaching a class. Luke had been in a car accident, drunk, driving at 2 in the afternoon, crashed into a highway barrier going 60. Not dead, but hurt badly. The hospital called Tara because she was still listed as his emergency contact. One more thing he'd been too disorganized to change. She left Nia with Derek and drove to the hospital, not because she cared about Luke anymore, but because Nia needed to know her father was alive, needed that reassurance even if she wouldn't admit it. He was awake when she arrived, bandaged and broken, shame radiating from every pore. "Why did you come?" His voice was rough, damaged. "Nia needed to know you're okay. I'm still her mother. That means making sure she has a father, even if he's not much of one." "Does she care if I'm okay? Really care?" Tara was brutally honest because he'd earned nothing less. "I don't know, Luke. You've given her a lot of reasons not to care, a lot of broken promises, a lot of choosing alcohol over her. Children can only take so much disappointment before they stop hoping." He closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners and running into his bandages. "I destroyed everything, didn't I? My marriage, my career, my relationship with my daughter. Everything I touched turned to ash." She didn't comfort him, didn't soften it, didn't lie to make him feel better. "Yes, you did." They sat in silence for several minutes, the beeping of machines filling the space where understanding used to be. Then Luke spoke, his voice cracking with pain that had nothing to do with his injuries. "I'm sorry for all of it, for making you small, for not seeing you, for taking you for granted like you were furniture instead of a person, for being a terrible husband and an even worse father, for wasting 12 years of your life teaching you that you didn't matter. What do you want me to say to that? That you forgive me, that it meant something, that I'm not just a monster who destroyed everything good in his life." Tara stood up slowly, looked at this broken man who'd broken her first, and spoke truth that had taken her 2 years to understand. "You want to know something, Luke? I spent 2 years being angry at you, hating you, wishing you would hurt the way you hurt me. And you know what I realized?" "What?" "You weren't worth that much of my energy. You're not evil. You're not a monster. You're just a deeply insecure man who was too small to love a strong woman, so you tried to break her down to your level instead of rising up to hers. And you succeeded for a while. But I'm not broken anymore. I rebuilt myself into something better, stronger, brighter than I was before. And you're exactly where you put yourself." His face crumpled completely. "I loved you. I swear I loved you." "No, Luke. You loved having me. There's a difference. You loved how I made you look, how I served you, how I disappeared so you could shine. But you never loved me, because you never knew me. You never asked. You never cared enough to ask." He had no defense because every word was true, and they both knew it. "I forgave you," Tara said quietly, each word deliberate and final. "But not for you. For me. I forgave you so I could stop carrying around the weight of hating you, so I could move forward without dragging you behind me like chains. But forgiveness doesn't mean we're friends. Doesn't mean I forget. Doesn't mean you get anything from me except this conversation right now. Can you tell Nia I love her? You can tell her yourself, if you get sober, if you show up consistently, if you prove you're worth her love. But I won't tell her for you anymore. I won't make excuses for you or translate your absence into something more palatable. You have to earn it back yourself." She left him there in that hospital room with his injuries and his regrets, walked out to her car, and drove home to the life she'd built without him. Derek was making dinner when she arrived. Nia was doing homework at the kitchen table, and the apartment smelled like garlic and oregano and safety. "How is he?" Derek asked carefully, reading her face. "Alive, regretful, still not my problem to fix." He kissed her forehead, understanding everything she didn't say, and went back to stirring sauce. That night, Nia asked to talk, and they sat on her bed like they had when she was small and afraid of monsters under the bed. "Do you think Daddy will get better?" "I hope so, baby, for his sake and for yours." But that's up to him. All we can control is how we respond to him, how we protect ourselves, how we build our life regardless of his choices. I love him, Mama, but I don't trust him anymore. Is that wrong? That's not wrong at all. It's very wise. Love and trust are different things, and he has to earn the second one back through actions, not words. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Did you love him before he became like this? Tara thought about the boy at the church picnic who'd painted a butterfly on her wrist, who'd made her feel seen for the first time in her life. I loved who I thought he was. Who he was at the beginning before the mask slipped. But people show you who they really are eventually, and I loved myself more than I loved the lie. Nia hugged her tight, fierce, full of more understanding than any 12-year-old should have. I want to be like you when I grow up, strong like you. No, baby, be like yourself. Just never make yourself small for anyone. Never dim your light to make someone else comfortable. Never disappear. The next morning, Tara painted. A woman rising from ashes like a phoenix, made entirely of fire and light, burning away everything that tried to contain her. She called it uncontained, and knew exactly where it was going. Her own wall, a reminder of who she'd become and who she'd never be again. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. 2 years after the divorce, Tara's life had transformed so completely she barely recognized herself. Her art was in a museum exhibition touring the Southeast, her paintings traveling to places she'd dreamed of visiting as a girl. She'd written a book about her journey from invisibility to empowerment, combining her paintings with her story in ways that made women cry in bookstores. It became a bestseller, not because it was unique, but because it was universal. Thousands of women buying their own story bound in pages, finally seeing themselves reflected back. She'd stopped taking commissions from people who wanted her to paint pretty things, decorative pieces for homes where women were still disappearing. Only painted truth now, only painted what mattered, what cut deep, what changed people. Nia was 13, confident and strong, and nothing like the scared 10-year-old who'd watched her mother blow up her marriage in front of 200 people. She painted alongside Tara, had developed her own distinct style, bold colors and sharp edges, won awards at school for her art. Teachers called her gifted, Tara called her herself. You know what's funny? Nia said one Saturday afternoon while they painted together in the studio. I used to be so embarrassed about what you did, the divorce party. Everyone at school talked about it. But now I'm proud. You showed me what strong looks like even when it's ugly, even when it hurts. Tara's eyes filled with tears. That's all I ever wanted, baby. For you to know your worth and fight for it. To never let anyone make you small. Derek proposed on a Tuesday evening in Tara's studio, nothing fancy or performative. Just him kneeling among her paintings, surrounded by her truth, with a simple ring and honest eyes. I know you said you weren't ready before, and if you're still not ready, I'll wait. I'll wait forever if that's what you need. But Tara Hyman, will you marry me? Not because you need me, but because you want me. Not to complete you, but to complement you. Not to save you, but to celebrate you. Tara looked at this man who'd spent 2 years proving his consistency, who'd never once made her feel small or invisible, who celebrated her success instead of feeling threatened by it, who saw Nia as a person to know instead of an obstacle to manage. Yes, she said, and meant it with her whole healed heart. Because this time I'm whole. This time I'm choosing from strength instead of fear. This time love is addition instead of subtraction. They married 6 months later in her grandmother's garden where Luke had proposed all those years ago, reclaiming the space, rewriting the story. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Nia was her maid of honor, walked her down the aisle in a purple dress she'd chosen herself, handed her off to Derek with a whispered, "Take care of my mama." "With my whole heart," he promised, and Nia believed him because he'd already proven it true. Luke wasn't invited, but he sent a card, simple and honest. I'm happy for you. You deserve happiness, and I hope you've found it. I'm working on deserving mine. He'd been sober for a year, attending meetings daily, seeing Nia every other week with increasing consistency, attended her school events without being drunk, helped with homework via video calls, showed up in small ways that accumulated into something like reliability. Daddy's different. Nia had mentioned a few months earlier, carefully neutral. Like he's actually trying, like he actually sees me now. Good, Tara said simply. You deserve a father who tries, who shows up, who chooses you. But she noticed Luke's changes with detachment, neither celebrating nor condemning. His transformation wasn't her victory or her responsibility. He was working on himself for himself, and that was how it should be. The night before the wedding, Tara stood in front of the mirror in her mama's house, wearing a new wedding dress this time, cream-colored silk that made her look powerful and free. Ruby found her there, silent tears streaming down her face. Second thoughts? No, just thinking about the first time I got married. How young I was, how certain I was that love was enough, how wrong I was. And now? Now I know love isn't enough without respect, without partnership, without being seen as a whole person. Luke loved me, but he didn't respect me. Derek does both. He sees me completely and loves what he sees. That's the difference between drowning and swimming. Ruby hugged her daughter tight. I'm so proud of who you've become, who you fought to become. I'm proud of me too, Mama, finally. The wedding was perfect in its imperfection. Simple and honest and full of joy that came from surviving, from choosing yourself, from refusing to stay dead. When Derek kissed her, Tara felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade. That light inside her, the one Luke had slowly dimmed, burning bright again, brighter than before, because it had been tested and survived. They honeymooned in Paris, walking through the Louvre hand in hand, and Tara stood in front of masterpieces crying because she'd made it. The girl from Augusta, Georgia, who'd dreamed of traveling the world, was finally here, finally seeing the art she'd only read about, finally living instead of just surviving. When they returned home, life settled into a new rhythm. Derek and Tara and Nia, a family built on choice instead of obligation, on respect instead of fear. Derek never tried to be Nia's father, just a steady presence who showed up and cared without demanding recognition. Tara's career continued to grow in ways that still surprised her. She gave a TEDx talk about emotional abuse and healing through art. The video went viral, 10 million views in a month, thousands of women commenting their own stories. This was my life. I thought I was alone. Thank you for speaking my truth so I could find my voice. She started a non-profit teaching art to women leaving abusive relationships, giving them space to find themselves again through creativity. Watch them transform the way she had, from invisible to unavoidable, from victim to victor. Luke called one evening asking to meet. Not demanding, not manipulating, just asking. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground, almost 3 years of distance between them. I wanted to thank you, he said, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like he needed something to hold on to. For what? For leaving me. For forcing me to see what I was. I'm sober now. In therapy. Rebuilding my relationship with Nia one conversation at a time. And I finally understand what I did to you. Really understand. Not just saying the words because they sound good. I'm glad you're better, Luke. Truly. But not for me. For Nia. She deserves a father who shows up. I know. And I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be better than I was. They talked for an hour like two people who used to know each other. No anger, no bitterness, just acknowledgement of shared history and separate futures. He told her about his journey to sobriety, the meetings, the work of becoming someone worthy of his daughter's trust. She listened with compassion, but not investment, glad for his growth, but clear it had nothing to do with her. When she got home, Derek was making dinner. Nia was setting the table, and the apartment smelled like home in ways their old house never had. "How was it?" Derek asked, reading her face like a book he'd studied. "Strange, sad, necessary, but I'm glad to be home." "This is your home now," he said, pulling her close. "Always will be." That night Tara started a new painting, a woman crowned in light, not bowing, not serving, not disappearing, reigning over her own life with strength, earned through surviving what should have destroyed her. Her face uplifted, her eyes open, her hands raised in celebration. She called it the Empress, and it was a self-portrait of who she'd finally become. Chapter 9. The Freedom. 3 years after the divorce, Tara stood in her own gallery, not rented space, hers, visible, dedicated to women's art and stories, 3 floors in downtown Atlanta, funded by her success and Derek's support. Nia was 15, helping set up the opening exhibition. Her own work displayed alongside Tara's, a mother-daughter show exploring visibility and voice. "Mama, this one should be centered," Nia said, pointing to a massive canvas showing a black woman made of light, expanding outward, taking up space without apology. Tara smiled. Her daughter had an artist's eye. "You're right, baby." Derek arrived with coffee, knew exactly how she liked it. "Nervous about tonight?" "Terrified. Critics are coming. Major collectors." He kissed her temple. "You're going to be amazing." Tonight was everything. A retrospective of her journey from invisible wife to celebrated artist. Major collectors from New York and Los Angeles, press from national magazines, women whose lives had been changed by her work. Luke would be there too. Nia had asked if it was okay, and Tara had agreed. Not for Luke, but for Nia. He'd been sober for over 2 years, working construction, rebuilding his relationship with Nia. Some weeks he was consistent, some he struggled, but he was trying. The gallery filled quickly, hundreds of people, mostly women, moving through the space with reverence. They stood in front of paintings showing erasure, awakening, brutal freedom, hard rebuilding. They cried, held each other, saw themselves, and felt less alone. The final room held crowned, women of all ages wearing crowns made of light. Not bowing, not serving, reigning over their own lives. Tara stood surrounded by admirers, reporters, gallery owners. She wore fire-colored silk, natural hair in an elaborate updo, power radiating from her. An Art in America reporter interviewed her. "Your work has resonated with millions. What do you want them to take away?" "I want them to see that invisibility is a choice someone makes for you, but visibility is a choice you make for yourself. I want them to know that leaving is possible, rebuilding is possible, thriving is possible. I want them to stop making themselves small." She saw Luke enter, standing at the back. He looked smaller, worn down. He moved through the gallery slowly, studying each painting like reading a confession. She watched him stop at the wife, the invisible woman serving dinner, watched his face crumble with recognition. After the crowd thinned, Luke approached carefully. "Can we talk?" Derek was nearby, protective. Tara nodded, and they stepped onto the rooftop terrace. "This is incredible," Luke said, gesturing to everything. "You're incredible. You never imagined I could succeed without you. You needed me small to feel big." He flinched, but didn't argue. "Fair." They stood in silence, looking at Atlanta's skyline. "When did you stop loving me?" Luke asked finally. Tara watched city lights flicker. "Our 10th anniversary, when you called, raising our daughter, just my job. That's when I knew you'd never seen me. The love died that night. I just didn't bury it for 2 more years. But you stayed. I was scared. Scared to be alone. Scared you were right about me being nothing without you. What changed? I realized being alone was better than being invisible. And I wasn't nothing without you. I was everything, just buried under years of your dismissal," Luke cried. "For what it's worth, I see you now. Too late. But you can see Nia. Be the father she deserves. That's what matters. She started to walk away. Tara? She turned, backlit by gallery lights. Thank you. For not giving up on yourself. For showing Nia what strength looks like. I didn't do it for you, Luke. I did it for me. That's the difference. You always needed someone else to define your worth. I learned to define my own. She walked back inside to Derek, to Nia, to her mama celebrating, back to her chosen family. Luke stood alone watching through windows as Tara laughed with her family, as Derek kissed her temple, as Nia hugged her. He watched the life he'd thrown away. Later, when the last guest left, Tara stood alone in her gallery looking at her paintings, the progression, bride glowing, woman fading, woman invisible, woman fighting, woman rising, woman crowned. Derek texted, Nia's asleep. I'm proud of you. Come home when you're ready. Come home. To the apartment they shared, to the life built on respect. She stood a few more minutes, feeling the weight of how far she'd come. From invisible wife to celebrated artist, victim to victor, shadow to light. She thought about Luke on that rooftop, finally seeing what he'd destroyed, and felt nothing, no satisfaction in his pain, just quiet certainty that his journey was his own. She turned off lights, locked the door, drove home to the man who celebrated her strength, to the daughter who'd learned from her courage, to the life she'd fought for. And for the first time since that church picnic 15 years ago, when a young man told her she made everyone brighter, Tara Hyman glowed with light entirely her own. She didn't need Luke Wood to see her. She saw herself. And that was everything. Chapter 10. The Empress Reigns. 5 years after the divorce, Tara woke in her own house to Derek bringing coffee and Nia making breakfast. Happy opening day, Derek said, kissing her awake. The Empress needs her strength. Today was her second gallery location in Savannah. She was 38, owned 2 galleries, published 3 books, had work in permanent museum collections. The girl from Augusta who'd dreamed of traveling had been to 12 countries now. Nia was 17, applying to art schools, already accepted to 3. She'd grown into a woman who knew her worth, who spoke her mind and took up space without apology. At breakfast, Nia showed her college essay. I wrote about you, about watching you leave Dad. Tara read through tears. Her daughter had written, my mother taught me that love without respect is just pretty slavery. She taught me that leaving is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. She painted herself back into existence and showed me I never have to fade. It's perfect, baby. Luke was part of their lives now in limited doses, sober 4 years, remarried to a kind woman. He saw Nia regularly, had helped with college applications, was trying to be a father in ways he'd never been before. Last month he'd asked to meet. I'm in a men's accountability group. We're supposed to make real amends. They'd met at the same coffee shop. I want you to know I understand now, not just in my head but in my bones. I emotionally abused you for 12 years. I'm telling other men my story, trying to stop them from doing what I did. I'm glad you're helping other men. Do you forgive me? I forgave you years ago, Luke, but not for you, for me, so I could be free. But forgiveness doesn't mean we're friends. It just means I released my right to hate you. That's fair. Now, driving to Savannah with Derek and Nia, Tara thought about how much had changed. The gallery was packed, women of all ages looking for themselves in Tara's art. The exhibition, Metamorphosis, women rising from the ashes of who they were told to be. The centerpiece was a new painting, a black woman in a garden holding a paintbrush, surrounded by 12 smaller paintings showing her journey. But looking forward, not back. She'd titled it, The Artist Formerly Known as Mrs. Wood. A reporter interviewed her. You've become a symbol for women leaving abuse. Does that feel heavy? It's not heavy because it's true. I'm not special. I'm just a woman who chose herself when it felt impossible. Every woman has that strength. I just painted mine so others could see theirs. What would you say to women still in those relationships? That leaving is terrifying and it might destroy your life temporarily, but staying will destroy your soul permanently. You're stronger than you think. Your children are watching. You deserve to be seen. The opening was massive. Sales exceeded projections. Women lined up to thank her, to tell her she'd changed their lives. That night at the hotel, Derek held her while she cried happy tears. You did it. We built it, she corrected. You supported every dream. That's what partners do. They see each other. Nia knocked. Family ice cream run? They walked through Savannah eating ice cream like tourists, like a family built on choice and respect. A message came, I left tonight, packed a bag, took my daughter, because I saw your paintings and realized I'd become invisible too. Thank you for being brave first. Tara showed Derek. They both cried. This is why it all mattered, he said. The next morning, driving home, Nia asleep in back, Tara looked at Georgia landscape. The same she'd seen as a young bride, full of hope and naivety. She was different now, scarred but whole, broken but rebuilt stronger. Derek took her hand. What are you thinking? How far I've come. How that scared woman wouldn't recognize this version of me. Would you tell her anything? I'd tell her it's worth it. Every hard moment. I'd tell her she's stronger than she knows. I'd tell her Luke Wood doesn't define her worth, and losing him is actually finding herself. At home, she went to her studio and painted. A woman walking out of shadow into light, not looking back, not apologizing, just walking forward into brightness, freedom. That night, she posted, 5 years ago today, I divorced my husband at our anniversary party in front of 200 people. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I was drowning, and that was the only way to breathe. If you're drowning too, you can leave, you can rebuild, you can become someone you're proud to be. I did. You can too. Viral. 30,000 comments. Women sharing their courage. Derek's arm around her. Look at what you started. I didn't start anything. I just refused to stay quiet. These women were always brave. They just needed permission to see it. 3 months later, Kennedy Center in D.C. National Conference on Domestic Violence. 5,000 people. Emotional abuse is invisible until you paint it, she said. Until you make it visible, people pretend it doesn't exist. But I'm here to tell you it's real, it's devastating, and it's survivable. Standing ovation. Women crying. One elderly woman whispered, I'm 73, invisible for 50 years. Is it too late? Tara took her hands. It's never too late to choose yourself. That night, Nia called. I got into Rhode Island School of Design, full scholarship. Tara screamed, cried, laughed. Her brilliant daughter who'd learned strength from survival. I'm so proud of you. I learned from you, Mama. You taught me I could be anything, as long as I never make myself small. Later, Tara stood at the hotel window, looking at D.C. monuments, so far from that church picnic. So far from the woman who'd believed love was enough. She knew better now, knew that love without respect was just pretty chains, knew that being alone was better than being invisible. Derek called. Saw your speech. You were magnificent. I was honest. Same thing. She smiled. I'll be home tomorrow. We'll be waiting. Your house, your family, your life. Your life. Not disappearing into someone else's story. Her life that she'd fought for. Tara Hyman. Artist, author, mother, wife, survivor, empress. She was all of it. Unapologetically. Visibly. Somewhere, Luke was probably watching her speech, seeing what he'd lost. But Tara didn't think about that. Didn't need his regret or approval. She'd become so bright that his shadow couldn't exist near her light. And in that brightness, she'd found what he never gave her, what she'd stopped asking for, what she'd learned to give herself. She'd found Tara, the real one, the one buried under 12 years of being Mrs. Wood, and she was never disappearing again. The end.